Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen. Yeah, we're going to talk about the transfer portal and what we're going to do about the QB situation with Taven Jackson transferring out. We also got to talk about this Tennessee game, Kentucky coming up to Thompson-Boling and winning this game. That was awful. It was terrible. Look at this, 63-56. It was actually closer than that. The Vols just couldn't do much right in this game. And I'll take you right to the big problem of what just absolutely killed us in this game. And it was the same crap that killed us in the second round of the NCAA tournament last year. We came out of the SEC tournament hot as a firecracker, couldn't miss from three. We were shooting 40, 50%, no problem. Tore through the SEC tournament, won 3 in a row. Then we won the first game in the NCAA by 20, filling it up from three. And then all of a sudden we go 3 for 21 against Michigan. Well, the exact same thing happened today. Look at this right here. 3 for 21 from three-point land. 3 for 21. And guess what? 14%. You cannot shoot 14% against a quality ball club, even at home, and even have a chance of winning. The fact they were even in the game was kind of ridiculous when you shoot that badly. And these were open shots. It's not like they were heavily contested and the guys were just chucking them up there best they could. They were open. They just didn't hit any. It was awful. Then, even worse, they got 43 rebounds. We had 23. And we've been doing well on the boards. So I don't get that. And I'm going to tell you what that is. Kentucky came down to Thompson-Boling, loaded for bear, which is exactly what I said in the last video, man. They're going to come in here. They're going to give us everything they got because they're beaten down. Everybody's telling them what dogs they are. They can't play. South Carolina beat them at home. I mean, it's been awful for them, and they came in. They were going to prove everybody wrong. When you get 20-plus more rebounds than the home court team does, a team ranked 5th, that's effort. That's tenacity, and that's anger. And they played angry, and they won. And for us, the Vols sports fans, it was like this today.
This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
Oh, yeah, it sucked more than anything that has ever sucked before. Man, it was terrible. And I was a little bit careful when I was talking about Kentucky because, yeah, they're in an absolute disastrous start of the season. But you got to be careful with Kentucky because they're loaded with a bunch of 4 and 5 stars. And if they get things squared away, they can be very difficult. They normally do that towards the end of the season, but they got called out early. And they played well. And Rick Barnes, I don't know if you watched him after the game. He came out and gave a news conference. Almost couldn't speak. He was yelling the entire game, just trying to get his guys squared away and in the right position and to rebound and all the things they weren't doing right. And he literally had just barely a voice left. And I think he was pretty much like this after the game.
Dad, you want to ask for something?
Don't touch!
Yep, don't touch. This game was hard on him. He really wanted this win. Unfortunately, the Kentucky players and the Kentucky coach wanted it more. And that's what it came down to. It came down to effort and tenacity. And they showed up hungrier. And it's kind of understandable. They needed it more than we did, and that was obvious. So we lose. All right, now we're going to talk about the transfer portal for quarterback. We've only got 2 scholarship quarterbacks coming in next year with Joe Milton and, of course, Nico. And we do have 2 quarterbacks that are preferred walk-ons, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. But, look, every college team in the world goes into a season with at least 3 scholarship quarterbacks. They prefer 4. That's really the ideal number, but you can go in with 3.
Yeah, you can with 3 barrels on him, not with 3, Ken.
Yeah, you can go in with 3. Quint, hush. But anyway, let's talk about our 2 preferred walk-ons that we currently have. We've really not even discussed them on this channel, and I don't know if there's been a whole lot of channels that really have discussed them because, they're kind of, they're preferred walk-ons. Let's see what they bring to the table. Now, Gaston Moore is a dual-threat quarterback. He's out of Central Florida. Of course, Josh Heupel knows him well, and he knows the system really well, which is a big positive. He's 6'2", 207 pounds. And we don't have a lot to go by from him because, he didn't really play at UCF or here very much, and he did redshirt a year. But in high school, obviously he was a really good player. I mean, they're all good players in high school. He was a 3-star, and he threw 156 completions out of about 260-plus passes. He was a little over 60%, around 62. but he was real good about protecting the ball. He had 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he ran for 7 touchdowns. And I don't have any highlight. There's really no highlights from college to speak of, so we're just going to take a look at his high school highlights. And realize this is about 3 years ago, so he's put on some weight since then, and he throws the ball a lot stronger now. But again, this is high school, and you can see he's got a nice arm. He's good and accurate. Throws a nice pass there across the middle. And he's got some height to him. He is 6'2", so he pretty well sees over the line decently. There he is throwing a nice, accurate pass deep. He's got good touch on his deep passes, I noticed. I watched quite a bit of this. Just a nice little out. Like I said, he's pretty accurate. And like all these high school players, he was very good there and won a championship or two and was successful. But we don't have anything to look at college because, I'll show you that. As you can see, here's his stats. 2020, Central Florida. He redshirted that year, so he didn't have a game. And then in 21, he just threw it a couple of times. And 22, the same thing. So we don't really have any numbers to go by for Gaston Moore. We just know that Josh Heupel likes him and brought him in from UCF, and he knows the system. So, take that for what it's worth. The other option is Navy Schuler. And, of course, this is Heath Schuler's son. Now, Heath was, the number 3 pick in the NFL. He was All-American. He was a great player, and he was dual threat as they could be. And Navy Schuler is 6 foot tall, just about 200 pounds. He threw in high school about 67% completion rate. He had a real nice arm. He threw 71 touchdowns, 19 interceptions, so he protected the ball real well, and he was kind of a general out there. And he threw for over 6,000 yards. So, he was great in high school. And again, he was a 3-star. He went to Appalachian State, and then he transferred over to UT as a preferred walk-on. Let's take a look at his college stats because there's not a whole lot to look at there either. And here you can see in 2020, he didn't really play. I believe he redshirted, so you see freshman twice there. Then sophomore at Tennessee, didn't really play to speak of. All right, let's take a look at Navy Schuler's highlights. Again, this is high school because we don't really have anything else to go by. And here you'll see Navy, like I say, runs up in the pocket, makes a nice throw. He seems pretty darn accurate. And in high school, he was very accurate. Same thing, throws a nice deep ball, throws a good mid-range ball as well. He's a little bit short at 6 foot for SEC play. That is my one concern. But again, Stetson Bennett's 5 foot nothing and won 2 national titles. So I'm not going to let that blind me. Nice touch on a deep ball. Little fade route. Here he comes, a little out. Very nice. Like I said, he was real good in college. But again, he's 3 years older since then. So, I'm sure his arm's even better now. And, his his genetics are probably as good as they can be because his dad was pretty much as good as there was in the college football. But as you can see, he throws a nice pass, a good touch on the ball, and pretty creative. And he was great in high school. So they've both been in a system for 3 years. Gaston, UCF, and Tennessee, and then, of course, Navy, Appalachian State, and Vols. So they've been in the college system for 3 years. This will be their 4th year, and they'll both be juniors, is my understanding, unless they picked up an extra year because of the virus or something. But, they're not coming in just true freshmen or anything like that. They are experienced to some level as far as knowing the system. But to throw them into the SEC, if you have to, for example, you had a couple of sprained ankles. Let's say Joe gets a sprained ankle game 1, then Nico gets a sprained ankle game 2. Well, guess what? You're going to be putting in a preferred walk-on. And I don't know that Josh Heupel is going to be comfortable with that. That's why you really need at least 3 scholarship players. Or, maybe these guys are better than I think, and they're ready to go. We may be surprised by that. You just never know. Look at Stetson Bennett. He was a walk-on. He's won 2 national titles. So we might have a Stetson Bennett in there. But I'm going to assume that we don't. So let's talk about who we can get currently in the transfer portal. Now, Dylan Hopkins is a guy at UAB, and he is from Maryville, Tennessee. So he's a local, so to speak. He's played in 33 games at UAB. He passed for almost 2,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions this past season. And then in 21, 2,200, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he's a pretty darn good quarterback. And UAB plays decent competition. And he does run pretty well, so he would fit into our offense in a decent level, and he is very experienced. Now, understand, it's going to be really hard to get somebody to come into this offense right now knowing they're probably going to be the 3rd option. So you're probably going to be looking for a guy that wants to turn into some sort of graduate assistant and go into coaching. This guy might be that option because he probably doesn't have NFL thoughts that, hey, I'm going to be some big dog in the NFL. So he may be looking the coaching route long term, and he may think, this might be a pretty good connection to come home. Maryville, Tennessee, obviously, not very far from the university. So he would be one option for us. Another fella is Tristan Gebbia. Not sure if I pronounced that right. He's at Oregon State. And this particular writer talks about him, said he'd be a real good option. He would be a 7th year of eligibility, and he's from California. He's a former 4-star recruit who is rated as high as the number 9 pro-style quarterback in 18. Hasn't really seen the field a whole bunch at Oregon State, but, he's been in college football for a very long time. Said he reminds him of Gardner Minshew, who was going to transfer to Alabama in case Hurts or Tua had transferred out. But he wound up going to Washington State, and he played for Mike Leach. He's now a backup quarterback in the NFL. Said Gebbia could follow the path of Minshew that he was originally going to take and transfer to an SEC school with the idea of getting into coaching. Now, like I say, right now it's kind of tricky. I don't know if there's a whole lot of options out there because when I look at the transfer portal and you look under quarterbacks, most of them have found a home. The guy I was most interested in for the Vols was Brennan Armstrong because he had been benched, but he'd had a really good season the year before. And I thought he'd be a good option for us, but he's going to NC State. And all the top dogs here have all picked a team. Here's another guy from, looks like Oregon State. That's a possibility, Chance Nolan. But again, the higher up you are here, these are guys that are going to want to play. They're not going to want to be the backup to the backup. Here's your Dylan Hopkins from Maryville, Tennessee, redshirt junior. I guess he'd have another year left. And that's about it. There's not a whole lot left out there. They've all pretty much found a home. So my thinking, and this is probably the route they're going to go, I'll bet you they wait to the spring and they kind of let everything flesh out. And you're going to have a bunch of quarterbacks that are going to enter the transfer portal from May 1st through the 15th. And they'll have figured out, hey, I'm 3rd string, I'm 4th string, I'm whatever I am at this big college. And maybe they'll think, hey, I can go in and compete. They may be thinking, hey, I'm going to be a graduate assistant, move into coaching, something like that. This is a tough sell. Having Taven Jackson leave was not helpful. It just wasn't. But I'm not shocked. I'm not mad at the kid. Look, he wants to play, and he's good. And I don't blame him a bit. He obviously saw what Nico was bringing to the table up close and personal, and he's like, this guy's good. I'm probably not going to beat him out. And he's got 8 million reasons on top of that to think that he won't. And then Joe flashed big time in the Orange Bowl, so he's almost certainly going to be the starter for the first game. So you've got a starter, you've got a 5-star. Taven's sitting there going, man, I'm the odd guy out. When the music stops, there's not a chair for me. So he's probably going to go to Indiana or something like that. So right now, I think what the Vols are going to do is be patient, wait until May, let spring practice go through, let some quarterbacks enter the transfer portal and then try to talk some of them into it. They may have to throw some NIL money at them to get them to come, go that route. But I don't see any way they don't start the season with 3 scholarship quarterbacks. I just don't see it happening unless, one of these other 2 walk-ons is so impressive that they turn them into a scholarship player. All right, folks, not the most fun video to do. Kentucky beats the Vols, which that's annoying. Having Kentucky beat us like that really stinks, especially at Thompson Bowling. I think that broke some huge streak of like 24 games in a row we've won there. So it was just – they took a leak in our Cheerios. Just call it what it is. And the transfer portal right now, there's not much to pick from. So, like I say, we're just going to have to be patient and let Josh Heupel do what he does. He seems to always find a real good quarterback for us, and we're just going to let him do that. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know to continue to cover the Vols, the SEC, transfer portal, all that good stuff. And if you've not subscribed, it's right here on the left. A lot of you folks watch my videos and you don't hit the subscribe button, and it's free. It's right there. Just boom. Hit that button. I would appreciate it. And YouTube puts a video right over here. It's my most recent one. It's quite popular. Be sure to check that out if you don't mind. And I hope you did like the content. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.